The Return by Håkan Nesser. Translated by Laurie Thompson and read by David Timson. You ask me how long life is, and I shall tell you, like it is, just as long as the distance between two dates on a headstone. W. F. Marler, Poet. 1. 24th of August, 1993. Chapter 1. It was the first and the last day. The steel door was locked behind him, and the metallic click hovered for a while in the cool morning air. He took 4 paces, paused, and put down his suitcase, closed his eyes, then opened them again. A thin morning mist hung over the deserted car park. The sun was just rising over the nearby town, and the only sign of life was the flocks of birds swooping over the fields that surrounded the cluster of buildings. He stood there for a few seconds and indulged his senses. The scent of newly harvested corn wafted into his nostrils. The dazzling light quivered over the asphalt. In the distance, a mile or so to the west, he could hear the persistent hum of traffic on the motorway that carved a path through the open countryside. The sudden realization of the world's true dimensions gave him a moment of vertigo. He had not set foot outside these walls for 12 years. His cell had been 7 feet by 10, and it dawned on him that it was a long way to the town and the railway station. An incredibly long way, perhaps impossibly far, on a day like this. He had been offered a taxi, that was normal practice, but he declined. Didn't want to take a short-cut into the world at this early stage. Wanted to feel the burden, and the pain, and the freedom in every step he took this morning. If he were to have a chance of succeeding in the task he had set himself, he understood what he needed to overcome and get the better of. He picked up his suitcase and started walking. It didn't weigh much. A few changes of underwear, a pair of shoes, a shirt, pants, and a toiletry bag. 4 or 5 books, and a letter. He had tried on the clothes he was wearing and signed for them at the equipment store the previous day. Typical prison clothing: black synthetic leather shoes, blue trousers, pale grey cotton shirt, and a thin wind cheater. As far as the locals were concerned, he would be as easily identifiable as a Roman Catholic priest or a chimney sweep. One of the many who wandered into the railway station carrying a cardboard suitcase, eager to leave. Having spent time out here in the big grey between the municipal forest and the motorway, having been so near and yet so far away, one of them, the easily identifiable. The big grey, that's what they called it around here. For him it was nameless. Just a brief stretch of time, and hardly any space. And it was a long time since he'd been worried about other people staring at him. A long time since he'd been forced to turn his back on that kind of superficial and pointless contact. He had left his former self without hesitation. There was no alternative, and he'd never longed to return. Never. You could say he had never really been a part of it. The sun rose. He had to stop again after 100 yards, wriggled out of his jacket and slung it over his shoulder. 2 cars overtook him. A couple of warders, presumably, or some other staff. Prison people, in any case. Nobody else ventured out here. There was only the big grey here. He set off once more. Tried to whistle, but couldn't hit upon a tune. It occurred to him that he ought to have sunglasses. Maybe he could buy a pair when he got to town. He shaded his eyes with his hand, squinted, and scrutinized the townscape through the dazzling haze. At that very moment, church bells started ringing. He glanced at his wristwatch. 8. He wouldn't be able to catch the first train. There again, he hadn't really wanted to. Better to sit in the station cafe over a decent breakfast and today's paper. No rush. Not this first day, at least. He would carry out the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?